Adi Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Dana Vrajajana Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Tiravana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Nandana Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Nandana Vrajajana Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Tiravana Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astatarasatasi Srimad Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi. It's been about a week for me covering these few verses, 11, 11, 29 through 32. And I've learned a lot. And this is the concluding class on these set of verses. One way of describing what the topic is an expanded explanation of the verse in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita on Dhyan Yoga, where this is specific for Dhyan Yoga, this is Bhakti Yoga, but where in the beginning work is said to be means, and in the mature stage, cessation of work is said to be the means. And that's a puzzling statement unless you have the big picture. And this is going deeper in the big picture. In Dhyana Yoga, there's stages. More than two, but the larger of the two is for someone whose mind is not in samadhi yet. For such persons, work is said to be the means. Work is said to be the means can be explained by saying the person who is entering into this Dhyana Yoga process but isn't in samadhi yet, they have to live in the world. They have to do activities other than meditation. And so for those activities they have to do, there's a necessity of Nishkam Karma Yoga. Working without attachment to the results. Now in the Bhakti teaching, not attached to the results means you offer the results to Krishna. But those that aren't bhaktas, they don't offer the results to Krishna, they just detach themselves from the work. And again, there's divisions of what that means to different people. Let's suppose the person is a meditator wishing to realize their intention is to realize the supersoul. They want to know who they are, and they want to realize the supersoul. So to know who you are, there has to be detachment from this world. So not being attached to the fruit, being the enjoyer of the fruits of the work, offer the results to a supersoul. And then the meditation part. And as that the purpose of that is to purify the mind, etc. This mind, senses, and intelligence, etc. So that when the mind is thus purified, one doesn't have to do activities in this world. One can just be absorbed in meditation and samadhi. Rare. But that stage is there in the Ashtanga Yoga system. Dhyan, Dharana, Samadhi. In the Bhakti process, which is what 1111 is doing, it's going into karma from Gyan, or the detachment that is the counterpart of knowledge, Gyan Vairagya. There's the disassociation by rigorous philosophical effort to detach oneself from that which you are not. Neti, neti, neti. Not this, not this, not this. And what's left is Brahman. What's Brahman? Well, Brahman is not this. Definition by negation. That kind of detachment doesn't lead to bhakti, but it leads to, as we've been hearing, it's a transcendental position. It's a potential, highly difficult to achieve, very rare to achieve transcendental position. Rare to achieve because by nature the soul is active, and so the idea for a jnani is to stop work. But to get to the stage where they stop work is they cultivate knowledge and chant Om, study Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishads, and be very, 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 that's a triple very, austere, celibate, renounced, detached, jnani, striving for Brahman realization. Either of those two may, by good fortune, yad chaya, by good, somehow or other, good fortune, come in contact with bhakti through a bhakta who gives bhakti. And if that ignites the bhakti within, voila. The same principles of knowledge and detachment apply, the same principles of purifying the mind and intelligence by offering the results to Krishna, so that the bhakti principle can grow and grow and grow and grow. And as that bhakti principle grows and grows, then the qualities of a bhakta, one who's carrying bhakti within their heart, will manifest. That's what 29 through 31 are. 11, 11, 29 through 31. And then comes the stage where one's purified. And in such a purified state, while recognizing that there are activities that have a potency to purify, and failing to do them is sinful, they may not do them anyways, because they have such faith in the bhakti process. Their mind, intelligence, and everything is deeply absorbed in Krishna. The doorway for that absorption is Mahat Sevam, or service to great souls. And the service to great souls includes hearing from those great souls, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, the bhakti process, where the bhakta, the Mahat, or the great soul is a bhakta, because there's great souls that aren't bhaktas, according to what we heard yesterday, or Rishabdev's teaching, Mahat Dvaram Ahor Vimuktes. One can become a transcendentalist or liberated soul by Mahat Seva that's not imbued with bhakti. One can come to the stage of transcendental contact. You can't stay there because there's no shelter, but it's a process of elevation that's found within the Vedic teachings and within Bhagavad Gita and within the Bhagavatam. It's incomplete. Anyway, so that's what we're hearing. And the rest continues with the merit of sadhu sangha, the potency of sadhu sangha, what one does, who is a sadhu. This is not it's not a new topic. The topic has been discussed several times. One of the really nice places in an earlier section of the Bhagavatam is Kapila Dev's teaching to Devahuti. Same topic, chapter 25, devotional service. Her question is very similar to Uddhava's. The language is slightly different, but the spirit of it is quite similar. Her question to her son, the personality of Godhead, Lord Kapila Dev, is, my husband has left. I've been with him for tens of thousands of years, serving him, and now he's gone. And I'm feeling, because I'm too much attached. And I know that after some time you're also going to go, and I'll be alone. So before you go, please instruct me how I can overcome this undue attachment to the bodily conception of life. That's the I and the mind, family, etc., etc. That's her question. Uddhava's question is a similar question in spirit. The language is different, but a similar question and similar answer, Kapila Dev's. And now Krishna's. What Krishna is this elaborate, like really elaborate. So we're finishing up that discussion. The reference to these verses, that's 11, 11, 29 through 32, is found in Chaitanya Charitamrita and the talks between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy. You're familiar with that section. Madhya Lila, chapter 8, verses 61 through 65. Text 61. This is also external, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. Please proceed and speak further on this matter. Ramananda Roy replied, to give up one's occupational duties in the Varnashram system is the essence of perfection. Right? That's what Krishna said in verse 32. Prabhupada's purport. A Brahmana may renounce his family and accept sannyas. Others, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, may also give up their families and take to Krishna consciousness. Such renunciation is called karma tyag. By such renunciation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is satisfied. Paragraph. In contrast, the process of renouncing the results of one's activities, that was the previous, varnashram with satisfying Vishnu. This one is giving up varnashram duties. The process of renouncing the results of one's activities by offering these results to Krishna is not considered uncontaminated. Because although such a process implies that one recognizes Krishna as the Supreme Person, it still involves one in activities on the material platform. With a bodily conception of life as well. Since such activities are within the material universe, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered them external. To correct this, Ramananda Roy recommended that one take to the renounced order of life in order to transcend material activities. Now, because the question was, what's the goal of life? It's not. No, the intermediate stage is purification, and then the goal of life is beyond purification, beyond just trying to become purified. This is supported by the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.11.32, which we've been hearing every morning. So that was text 61, here's text 62. Ramananda Roy continued, quote, occupational duties are described in the religious scriptures. If one analyzes them, he can fully understand their qualities and faults, and then give them up completely to render service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a person is considered a first-class man. Exactly what is said in 11.11.32. No BBT purport. Here's text 63. As stated in Scripture, 1866, after giving up all kinds of religious and occupational duties, if you come to me, the Supreme Personality Godhead, and take shelter, I will give you protection from all of life's sinful reactions. Do not worry. Purport. In this connection, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami instructs in his book Manashiksha, number 2, Na dharmam, na dharmam, shrutigana niruktam kila kuru, vraje radha krishna prachura paricharyam iha tanu. He has thus enjoined that we should not perform religious or irreligious activities as prescribed in the Vedas. The best course is to engage always in the service of Lord Krishna and Radharani. Hey, it's right in Manashiksha, same as Krishna's teaching here. That is the perfection of everything in this life. Similarly, in Srimad Bhagavatam 429:46, it is said by Narada Muni, gives the Sanskrit, when one actually takes to the loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he gives up all duties in the material world, as well as all duties prescribed by the Vedic literatures. In this way, one is fixed in the service of the Lord. Now, just a little distinction. There's karma sannyas where you're a Mayavadi, you just give up things. And there's another, the position of a devotee, that one doesn't do those things for the purpose of purification, but one does those things because it sets an example for others. when doing those things, it's in the spirit of service to Krishna, because the spirit of service to Krishna is everything. So one may do or may not, on the Raganuga Bhakti stage, or the Bhava Bhakti stage, one may or may not. One does. But even if one doesn't, there's not sinful, or there's not culpability by karma for not doing something. Because one is in a mood of spontaneous ecstasy, one may not do something. Text 64. There's two more. 64. After hearing Ramananda Roy speak in this way, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again rejected his statement, saying, "Go ahead and say something more." Ramananda Roy replied, "Devotional service mixed with empiric knowledge is the essence of perfection." Purport. Devotional service mixed with non-Vedic speculative knowledge is certainly not pure devotional service. Therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in his Anubhashya, Anubhashya is his commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita, preaches that self-realization following the execution of ritualistic ceremonies is in the neutral stage between liberation and conditioned life. It is a place beyond this material world, in the river Viraja, where the three modes of material nature are subdued or neutralized in the unmanifested stage. However, the spiritual world is a manifestation of spiritual energy and is known as Vaikuntha, the place where there is no anxiety. The material world, known as Brahmanda, the material world known as Brahmanda, is the creation of the external energy between the two creations. That is, the material creation and the spiritual creation is a river known as Viraja, as well as a place known as Brahmaloka. Viraja Nadi and Brahmaloka are shelters for living entities disgusted with material life and inclined to impersonal existence by way of denying material variegatedness. So it's said in some places that's the destination of Buddhists. They go to a place where it's neither here nor there. River Viraja. Since these places are not situated in the Vaikuntha Lokas or the spiritual world, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu proclaims them to be external. In the Brahmaloka and Viraja Nadi, one cannot conceive of the Vaikuntha Lokas. Brahmaloka and Viraja Nadi are also attained after difficult austerities. But in these realms, there is no understanding of the personality of Godhead and his transcendental loving service. Without such spiritual knowledge, simple detachment from material conditions is but another side of material existence. From the spiritual point of view, it is all external. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected this proposal, Ramananda Roy suggested that devotional service based on philosophy and logic is a more advanced position. He therefore quoted the following verse from Bhagavad Gita 18:54. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed towards every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Okay, that was Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 8. Now comes Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 9. It's detailed. This is graduate study, Srimad Bhagavatam, and postgraduate study, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Text 263, quote, "In every revealed scripture there is condemnation of fruitive activities. It is advised everywhere to give up engagement in fruitive activities, for no one can attain the highest goal of life, love of Godhead, by executing them." Purport. In the Vedas, there are three khandas or divisions: Karma Khanda, Jnana Khanda, Upasana Khanda. The Karma Khanda portion stresses the execution of fruitive activities. But ultimately, it is advised that one should abandon both Karma Khanda and Jnana Khanda and accept only Upasana Khanda or Bhakti Khanda. One cannot attain love of Godhead by executing Karma Khanda or Jnana Khanda, but by dedicating one's karma or fruitive activities to the Supreme Lord, one may be relieved from the polluted mind. Same message as what we've been hearing, 11th canto. The mind becomes purified by detached work. One may be relieved of the polluted mind and become free from mental pollution. Becoming free helps elevate one to the spiritual platform. Then, however, one needs the association of a pure devotee, for only by a pure devotee's association can one become a pure devotee. When one comes to the stage of pure devotional service, the process of Shravanam Kirtanam is very essential. By executing the 9 items of devotional service, beginning with Shravanam Kirtanam, one is completely purified. Only then is one able to execute Krishna's orders in the Bhagavad Gita 1865. Quote, "Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer your homage to me," etc. And then 1866. In this way, one develops his original constitutional position of rendering loving service to the Lord. Paragraph, he's going to state it again. One cannot be elevated to the highest platform of devotional service by Karma Khanda or Jnana Khanda. Repeats. Pious activities are certainly better than impious activities, but even pious activities cannot bring about ecstatic love of God. Pious or impious activities can bring about material happiness and distress, but there's no possibility of one becoming a pure devotee simply by acting piously, etc. Text 264. Quote, "Occupational duties are described in the religious scriptures. If one analyzes them, he can fully understand their qualities and faults and then give them up completely to render service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A person who does so is considered a first-class man." Very similar to what Ramananda Roy said in the previous chapter. Okay. Quoting text 266. "As long as one is not satiated by fruitive activity and has not awakened his taste for devotional service by Shravanam Kirtanam, one has to act according to the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions." So, 2 things: a taste for hearing and chanting, and 2, the mind still being attracted to the possibility of, the expectation of finding happiness out there. the senses, and there's objects out there. Let me find some happiness out there, and I'll do these activities, and voila, here comes happiness. In this planet, or some elevated higher planet, or some other realm, maybe liberation realm or something, I'll find happiness there. So do this to get that. As long as one is in that position and hasn't developed a taste, then prescribed duties are necessary. We heard this in the same teaching Krishna is giving to Uddhava. By the way, that's a quotation from Uddhava Gita 11:29. 11, chapter 20, text number 9. We're not there yet. We're still in chapter 11. And finally, Chaitanya Bhagavat. Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adi Kanda, chapter 17. Verse reads, according to the Vedas and Puranas, it is the nature of the Supreme Lord to drink the water that has washed the feet of a Brahmana. Commentary. One can never progress on the path of spiritual life by disregarding and deviating from the principles of Varnashram Dharma. Ordinary mundane people who are attached to fruitive activities are unable to understand the higher purpose of Varnashram. One should fully respect those Brahmanas who are situated on the highest platform from the material point of view. Sri Gaurasundara neither transgressed the ordinary social customs of his time, nor totally disregarded the principles of karma kanda on the pretext of offering oblations to his forefathers. Apparently, this is the section where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has gone to Gaya to perform pinda for his father. And on the way, he gets a headache or fever, and they met doctors, and nothing cures. And he says, the thing that will cure my fever is if I take the water that's been washed the feet of a Brahmana. And this is the commentary. Fearing that people may foolishly misunderstand the purport of the scriptures and introduce the process of karma kanda as the spiritual path, the Jagatguru Lord enacted the pastime of drinking water that had washed the feet of a Brahmana and offered oblations to his forefathers at Gaya, and therefore enacted the pastime of accepting spiritual Vaishnava initiation. So he's using the same language that we've been hearing. There's daily or nitya dharma, and there's occasional or naimatika dharma. So this is a naimatika dharma, going to Gaya to offer oblations to the forefathers. Now, the worship goes to Lord Vishnu, and it's an occasional. So is one to perform it or not? But this question comes up. You've probably been asked this question. I've been asked this question. Some relative died. What's the ritual that we should observe? And if you're in America, you can't go to Gaya. What are you going to do? So there's very simple. I asked this question of our North American deity worship minister, Jayananda. He referred it to Nrsinga Kavacha, and there isn't much said about it. It's, the simple procedure is you offer bhoga to Vishnu or Krishna, and then before a picture of the ancestor, you place that now prasad for the picture of the ancestor or the departed soul. and you have kirtan to distribute prasadam to the Vaishnavas and Brahmanas. No, there may be, because these devotees at the Mayapur Institute, they teach rituals. There's 4-month course, and one of the months is just rituals for various types of activities that Vaishnavas are supposed to do. It's a major section of Hari Bhakti Vilas. It's rituals and the mantras and procedures, mantras and tantras for everything. Like coming up is Janmashtami, how to observe Janmashtami. It's in Hari Bhakti Vilas. What are the rituals? So they teach those things for a whole month to those who enroll in the course. And they don't have a lot to say on what a departed ancestor. So what Lord Chaitanya did is he followed what might be considered a karmakanda ritual. I'll give another example. Another example is Ekadasi. That's a Naimitika. It happens twice every month. Now, karmakanda folks, they follow Ekadasi. Strictly. I mean, those that are strict karmakandis. And you do this and you do that and you do the other thing, and you get this reward. Next Ekadasi, you do another set of things, you get that reward, and you follow the whole calendar, and you all the bounties of life are there. Follow Ekadasi, because it's an auspicious day, and you do this and do that, and it's like a vending machine. You put in the coins, pull the lever, and down comes what you want. That's how karmakanda is taken up. There's faith, because it's Vedic. These rituals that they follow, it's Vedic. And they get. And so that nourishes their faith. Look, we came down the vending machine chute. But it's on the material side. And that doesn't result in awakening of love for Krishna. So we observe Ekadasi, but the intention behind the observing Ekadasi is different. And we don't do all the rituals. We do certain things that are enjoined in Hari Bhakti Vilas for us, for Vaishnavas. That's what we do. In Narada Pancharatra, it is mentioned as follows, quote, one should perform only those activities, either worldly or prescribed by Vedic rules and regulations, which are favorable for the cultivation of Krishna consciousness. That's bhakti. Accept and reject on the basis of what's favorable for bhakti. Paragraph. When a living entity thinks that obtaining physical and mental happiness is the goal of life, then the waves of temporary, mundane thoughts never leave him. And in course of time, his propensity for pious and impious activities based on Varnashram principles gradually transforms into the propensity for prohibited sinful activities. As soon as the living entity develops faith in topics related to the Lord, this is repeated again and again. Here it's in Bhaktisiddhanta's purport. He realizes in his service, inclined heart, that taking unalloyed shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya is the only criterion for obtaining supreme, eternal auspiciousness. In Chaitanya Charitamrita 22:93, it is stated, quote, without hesitation, one should take the exclusive shelter of Lord Krishna. With full confidence, giving up bad association and even neglecting the regular principles of the 4 varnas and ashrams, that is to say, one should abandon all material attachment. one more. When one is situated on such an exalted Paramahansa Vaishnav stage, then such a liberated soul no longer needs to go to Gaya and offer oblations to his forefathers or drink the water that has washed the feet of the Brahmana. In the Amala Pramana, this Bhagavatam, it is stated, 11.11.32, the verse that we've been discussing. And in Bhagavad Gita, 1866, same point. If one discusses the above two verses, then, which is what we've been doing, then he will gradually become indifferent to worldly activities and the search for impersonal Brahman. Another kind of detachment besides the impersonal detachment. Although the Lord is the maintainer of everyone, the protector of Sanatana Dharma and the knower of religious principles, he exhibited the pastime of following the principles of an inferior platform in order to eternally benefit the living entities. One should not misunderstand, however, that the spiritual progress of the living entities is dependent simply on such inferior conceptions, or niyamagraha, simply imitating without effect. From the spiritual point of view, the gradual advancement or levels of devotional service has been properly described by Sri Ramananda Roy, who was a Mahabhagavata spiritual master of the Paramahamsas, while replying to Sri Gaurstundar's inquiries. The Bhagavad Gita, which is instructed to Arjuna by Lord Gaursundra in his pastime as Krishna, also instructs Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga to their respective consciousness. Semicolon. And after fully rejecting their behavior, it establishes the supreme pure religion of devotional service as the topmost means for achieving the goal of life. After hearing this most confidential instruction, narrow-minded persons consider that engagement in devotional service and engagement in sinful activities based on their narrow-mindedness are equal. Wow. Although such considerations are full of ignorance and suitable for unsuccessful yogis, according to Bhagavad Gita 3.26, quote, so as not to disrupt the minds of the ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Those who have strong material conceptions, or those who make the mistake of considering transcendental subject matters through their material faculties, and thus consider transcendental subjects a product of the material world, should, after considering their own narrow-mindedness, forgive the devotees. Bhaktisiddhanta. So, we've thoroughly discussed this subject, and we're hearing there's, different acharyas in different ways are emphasizing the message in their own way, and according to context. But 1 week's worth plus of going over this should be pretty clear. See if there's any discussion. Nearly 8:30.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So, a thought that I've been having since I've been hearing the last few days is we performing devotional service and maintaining the focus was easier for us when the explicit focus of our life was outreach.
Was outreach.
Yes, that was a decade ago. But then since that time, the duties that have come up, which I hear is essential because I'm not on the platform of anywhere, it's that focus of devotional service has become very diffused, because there is goals in every aspect of my life, goals in homeschooling, goals in this. And so the goal towards service to Krishna has, I feel like it's somehow gone in the background. It's there, but it's. So I think I'm asking how I feel like I'm a little lost. I'm lost between, like how you said, the Buddhists are neither in this world nor in that world. I feel like that. I'm neither doing focused devotional service nor feeling satisfied in the duties that motherhood and teaching and all of that brings to me.
Namapriya has asked a similar question. The language was different, but it's a similar question. And did you hear her question and my answer? Okay.
I probably missed that.
There is some difference in her question from yours, but the soul has coverings, gross and subtle. And duties in life they correspond to those coverings, our psychophysical nature, stated differently. In the answer that I gave her, a response, I said, we've made choices, she's made choices, you've made choices, and let's just assume those choices are suitable for you. That is to say, motherhood and teaching, etc., have everything to do with the coverings. And also, the broader picture of a spirit soul taking a woman's body, you're to be protected. So there's the protection this way, there's the protection that way, and then there's the preparing for the protection going into the future for children. And when their children are grown, their duty is to give protection to their mother. So it's maintaining your psychophysical status. You have a body and a mind, and different, each of us, different natures accordingly. And so the duties are for purification. So I made reference to a verse from, it's the final 5 verses of Brahma Samhita are Krishna's response to an unspoken question by Brahma. Now I have this really high realization. Next comes building a universe. And my concern is your concern. My concern is, if I build this universe, I'm going to get involved in building a universe. My attention is going to go away from that realization. And on the other hand, I have this psychophysical nature, and if I don't do my duty, then that's sinful. Or I'm not going to become further purified. What to do? That's the unspoken question. And there's 5 verses. They're worth reading several times, but putting it in a nutshell. Here's the good news for you and for Brahma and for Namapriya and for everybody else. When those worldly activities in Bhakti Siddhanta, he says there's 3 categories, gives list according to those 3 categories, body, mind, so whatever, you can read it, social, physical, etc., mental. And there's duties according to those categories. When those duties according to those categories are joined with the essential, the 9 processes of direct processes of bhakti, they're as purifying as the 9 processes of bhakti. So the gap from your question is not seeing the purpose of those duties in terms of purification. It's not like resentment. I don't like my children, or I don't like, you like the activities, but the vitality seems to have been dissipated. It's not the same vitality as before those duties began. So it's part of purification to recognize the higher purpose of those things is not just doing what I like to do. Oh, and Krishna's in the picture too. So it's a dovetail between things I like to do and Krishna's in the picture too. It's transition to, this is part of the purification of contaminated consciousness, because the soul is pure and there's a covering that's not. And it's a means for removing that, for lifting the covering, so that I'm seeing these activities that I'm doing non-different from, the same spiritual potency as the direct devotional activities. Now, you mentioned preaching, that you can say that's the kirtanam, shravanam kirtanam. But that has its byproduct, swananam. There's a happiness of preaching. The spiritual happiness of preaching is pleasing Krishna. Because Krishna is pleased, there's a happiness for us. And doing the duties that you're doing is pleasing to Krishna, dependent upon the consciousness behind making this as an offering unto Krishna, with the results that are up to him, and the results go to him. Whether your boys become, pleasing to Krishna or not, that's up to Krishna. You do your duties because it's for the purpose of pleasing Krishna. Now, it's hard to remember that while you're involved in XYZ things. But it's part of purification of that contaminated consciousness, so that my mind can be always fixed on Krishna. That means Krishna's pleasure. The method is doing what you're doing today and tomorrow and for the next while, until that stage of life comes when the children are out of the home and they're in this now independent position, independent from mom and dad at least, and now you have more discretionary time to do the direct things. But it's also something like this. Here's a really easy, A or B. A, I should become charitable when I make enough money that I'm comfortable to be charitable. Or B, however much money I'm making, I should be charitable, because it's a principle to live by. So same preaching as a spirit. So how can you, in your current set of duties and circumstances, etc., be engaged in preaching? And you can preach or teach by example, by giving. You're carrying, I want that in your heart, I want to give bhakti to others. Krishna will open doors. I'm sure it's happening. Krishna will open doors. Aside from peer association and doing things with peers, with preaching, there's peer preaching, that giving association to friends. I know you do that, but I'm sure the other area is also there, where you're in a situation by your lifestyle, you're interacting with a set of people that I'm never going to interact with. As sannyasi, your guru is not going to interact likely with those people in the way that you are. So you have the instrumental, the nimitta capacity to give bhakti to those people, however preliminary. And if that's what's in your heart, you'll feel the same happiness, along with the other purification sets of activities that you're doing. So everything has to do with your regard for your relationship with Krishna. Even as a preacher, when that later stage of life comes that your children are grown up and settled, etc., etc., the higher happiness is being the instrument of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, not the happiness of now I have more freedom and discretionary time and I can do more of this instead of that. Say it again. The essence is that the focus of the purpose is to please Krishna. Listen to the recording, Festival Holy Name, on the topic of indifference, and you'll get that, an hour and a half's worth. It's the essence of bhakti, the intention, anukulyena Krishna anushilanam, in your present situation. If that's there, you got it. If that's not there, you're going to feel complacent, or that the vitality isn't the same. Now, is there challenges? Yes. Are there challenges for a brahmachari or a preacher? There's challenges. It's a different set. According to different natures, there's different sets of challenges. Okay. Anyone else?
Formulating that question, but try my best to explain it. So, the activities that we are doing, right, that we should do, like as an, or try to at least understand that it's an instrument of Lord Chaitanya's. How do we get that realization or more clarity in that? Like some of the activities where we do, like as is day in, day out, that how do we connect the dot? That's because some of them might not be directly related to the interacting with other people.
My understanding of the question you're asking is very simple. Because it's simple, it may not be satisfying, maybe like oversimple. But my understanding of the answer to your question is two things. How the quality or the consciousness that you carry when you're chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and the consciousness that you carry, the receivingness that you carry when you're hearing. Atakshi Krishna Namadi Nambaved Grayamindriyai Sevan Mukhihi Jivadau Sevam Swayameva Svaratyada. You've heard the verse, right? You've heard it many times, probably. Sevan Mukhihi Jivadau. Jiva is, in this case, is the tongue, spelled different than Jiva. It's the tongue. So service, paraphrased, it's difficult to realize God, but it's possible if by starting with service with the tongue, so prasadam and chanting, tasting and vibrating. So if your mood when chanting is the mood of service, say it negatively. If their mood is not the mood of service, it's something else, whatever that something else is, you're not going to get what you're looking for. When you do engage in chanting in that mood of service, this is a service. This is a, expand what that means. Again, it's, long classes discussing that question. What does that mean? Service with the tongue to the holy name. Another festival holy name was specifically focused on 5 classes just on that one topic to unpack it. But service mood to the holy name. And when you're hearing, it's the service mood when hearing. The question came up about receptivity, another one of Namapriya's questions, becoming more receptive while hearing. How do you do that? How do you wrap up? increase your receptive mood in the matter of hearing. It's service. Krishna is giving his association through sound, and my heart is, I want that it starts with wanting your relationship with Krishna. Then your receiver's on. If it's mechanical, it's not going to have the same effect. If the receiver's on, it says, what I want deep inside is not stuff or, but I want that relationship with Krishna. So it's not similar to this indifference topic. If the hearing is, this is an opportunity for me to connect with Krishna. It's very sacred time, very sacred act, very sacred sound. My heart's open. In the mood of service. And when I hear something, let me apply it. Those two things, you'll get what you want. Minus those two things, it'll be, business as usual, or, an ongoing up and down struggle, unsteady. Like the waves of a river moving up and subsiding, and we'll just move along with the river of time and take another birth, and whatever we've accomplished, we'll get the results of those things. But the focus comes from hearing and chanting in equality, in the mood of service. And then that turns into the relationships, the interactive, the social part of life. When it's in the mood of service. And then there's all kinds of subtleties. In the mood of service. Unlimited variety of services, opportunities, following codes of the Vedas, but the essence is mood of service to Krishna. I'll just give for example, because it just came up yesterday. Somebody from some other part of the world asked a 3-part question. It had to do with according to the 7th canto Bhagavatam, Narada speaking about Varnashram Dharma, and it was specific about, the question was specific about the duties of a wife in Grahasta Ashram, Varnashram, the duties of a wife. And the verse speaks something about being respectful of the in-laws of your husband, your husband's relatives. And the wife is to be respectful. So the question was, what if the in-laws are abusive or harsh, or they take advantage of, you're supposed to be like this and they're like that? So what do you do? I mean, that's just an example, for example. And there's, n number of examples. So that the principle doesn't change, and how you apply the principle depends upon the circumstance. In your heart, you have, because it's Krishna's, it's the Bhagavatam's instruction, the principle doesn't change. You may, navigate your way through those relationships in a different way, but don't feel animosity or hatred or revengeful or frustrated or whatever. You be respectful, and the way that's going to look may be altogether different, depending upon what's on the other side of those in-laws, what kind of personalities they have. And it's true, men exploit women, and in-laws exploit daughter-in-laws, and but there's other kinds. So it doesn't change the principle. So how do you get that principle strong? Hearing and chanting in a way that's in a mood of service. That's our bhakti life. Krishna is to be pleased. And when we get away from that principle, then we get confused, and we're in this duality zone. Really unsteady, sometimes you get seasick and throw up. It's just like, and sometimes it's, hey, things are going great, and then back down again. It's the quality of the mode of service in chanting and hearing. Krishna's mercy is coming. Let me turn my receiver on and be in the mood of service. As I'm receiving his mercy, let me be in the mood of serving him in the form of his name and the form of the topics. That's Radha Krishna worship in sound. Online question?
So Maharaj, the first question is from Snehavalli Mataji. We have discussed about jnanis. I would like to know how to identify them if they are not Shankara's followers,
If they're what kind of followers?
not Shankara's followers.
Gyanis that are not Shankara's followers, the self-made Gyanis.
Comma, not scientists. So that's comma, not scientists.
Not
Scientists.
scientists. Well, one way to answer your question is Prabhupada's statement that there's nothing new. It's just a reworking of old wine in new bottles. So they may not be Shankara followers, but they're principles of Jnana, those who are Gyanis. They may not know Shankara, they may not be, read his teachings and the teachings of his followers, etc. But there are principles involved in all of that, where there's a predisposition A and elimination B. So, there are such people, and there's variations. So, but the principles are very similar. So the question is, how do we regard them, or how do we identify them?
Yeah. How to identify them if they are not Shankara's followers?
How to identify them? They're just a different garden variety of Jnani. That's how to identify them.
A follow-up question is, can Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya be considered a jnani before he got the mercy of Lord Chaitanya?
Oh, yeah. He was a Shankara guy.
So another question from Amara Mataji. So her question is, a pure devotee may
A
renunciate,
pure devotee may what?
renunciate or not renunciate,
Renounce or not
renounce
renounce.
or not renounce all the rituals to meditate upon the Supreme Lord.
Yeah,
And this activity can be seen similar to jnani meditation.
yeah,
But their object of meditation is different.
yes,
And their intentions are also different.
yes.
And in case of a devotee, it is Krishna and Krishna's pleasure, respectively. Could you kindly comment on this understanding if it is proper?
It's proper.
Okay. And one last question from Tulsi Priya Mataji.
There's different paths, and on those paths, there's varieties on those paths. So you've given it a general description, and there can be varieties of that description depending upon the person and their disposition, etc. The school that they've come from, or their leaning, or something like that. So there are varieties on those paths, but you've given a nice general description. Tulsi Priya.
So last question. We don't work in the temple. And in the class today, we heard of service mood. So how can we develop service mood?
By hearing about it and understanding that's important, and associating with those that have service mood and striving to cultivate it for those two means, hearing and association. And you little by little you strive. The on the negative side, watch out for the what's in it for me spirit. That's not service. That's fruitive. And fruitive is an antithesis of service. Service means the object should be pleased. The person who is the object of service should be pleased. So beware of that tendency, because it's strong, really strong. So by hearing and cultivation through good association. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.